All right, I say we get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Battling Buyer Agent Fatigue with KW Maps coach, Jen Davis. Please note this meeting is being recorded and will be available within 24 hours on the Maps Fast Track YouTube channel. You may access the YouTube channel from your Zoom confirmation email, and we will share the link in the chat momentarily. Currently, everyone is on mute. We do value group participation, so we ask that if you have questions, please type them into the chat box. Your questions will be addressed by your coach throughout your webinar. Following the meeting, if you have any questions about today's call or coaching programs, please email us at fasttrack@kw.com. That's all for me. Jen, take it away.
Thanks, Madeline. Happy Wednesday, everyone. I'm super excited to get to see all of my friends. So today we're going to talk about something that I think most of us are familiar with, whether you're a buyer agent or a listing agent, or even an admin on the team, potentially an inside sales agent, and it's battling buyer agent fatigue. So that's the title of this, and yet it would work for anybody in any role really within the real estate community. So when I look at, there we go. When I was looking to build out the content for today, it was putting myself in the position of every step along the way when I was building out our buyer business. So I joined Keller Williams 10 years ago this fall. I joined Holt Homes Group as a buyer's agent and then built out a team within a team. And so we were able to grow our buy side of our business from 50 units per year up to 225 buy sides per year. And then when I stepped out of the buyer agent role, those numbers have continued to go up. And I remember how hard it was to work with buyers and to manage expectations, and at the same time have any semblance of family life. And so this is the number one reason I got into coaching, was because of how hard it was, and making sure that I didn't feel guilty. So I don't know if anybody out there has ever thought, gosh, when I'm at work, I feel guilty I'm not at home. Or when I'm at home, gosh, I feel guilty I'm not at work. And so this idea of be where your feet are kind of came to me. Oops, I think I may be ahead of slide. Guys, I'm having technical difficulties today. So the idea of be where your feet are came to me when I was sitting at a soccer game and I watched, or I didn't watch, my daughter score a goal. She was playing a defender and she was on the back half of the field, and she literally never scored goals. That wasn't her position. And I was in the middle of negotiating something, and I was texting and I was calling and I was checking email and I was doing all of the things that I felt like I could squeeze into that amount of the time instead of being present for her game. And I thought at that moment, I've got to learn where I'm at and how to lean into where I'm at. So what that means for me is understanding I've got to plan for what my day looks like, what my week looks like, what my month looks like, and what my year looks like. So when I look at planning for it, we've all heard people talk about time blocks. And we've all heard people say, if you time block, everything becomes easier. It's not just putting it on your calendar, though. It's living by what those time blocks are. It's looking ahead more than one day at a time. And so a good friend of mine one time said to me, he said, you know, Jen, I know that I'm going to have a winning day if only 50% of my day is booked. And it hit me because I thought, gosh, I plan every minute of every day, right? I don't leave any room in the day to breathe or to think or occasionally eat. And so when I looked at how do we create this life that's worth living? How do we get to a space that we're present where we're at, whether that be at work or at home? And it really came down to not just time blocking my week, but looking ahead in the month. What's coming up? What are we going to be doing? And then per year, right? When are the kids out of school, right? Is it Martin Luther King Day, right? Those are the days that kind of sneak up on us that all of a sudden we're like, gosh, I wish I would have planned to have this day off. And so when we look at planning for it, my suggestion to you would be that for the year, you're going to spend anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks planning out your calendar for the year. And then when you get to the month, you're going to spend ahead of each month, you're going to spend probably a whole day looking at the month we're headed into to make sure we're really planning for what needs to happen in that month. And then I'm going to spend about an hour per week looking at my week. What can I move? What can't be moved? Making sure that the next stage of this is building margins in. The reason my friend said to me that he only books 50% of his day is because without that space or that margin, two things. Number one, we don't have any space to take advantage of an opportunity. If a great deal comes across our desk, we don't have the ability to actually go take a look at it. We don't have the ability to lean into our investors when we see something that might be an opportunity for them. If there are no margins built in, I don't have the opportunity to provide high-level customer service to my clients when something pops up. And so I was building out my day, and it was almost like, how many things could I squeeze in? And what I found was, if I only put the most important things on my calendar and I build in some margin, I have the ability to think. I have the ability to be proactive versus reactive. And the difference in my life when we started doing that, and Jessica's on screen with me, it was she had come into my life, and at that point I was closing 182 buy sides a year with 2 showing partners. Jess comes in and we go to 225 units per year. And what we looked at was, how do we do this? And how can I still be a mom? How can I still be home at night? How can I still be available for my clients, right? If I'm building out a team, I've got to be available on both ends of it. And some of that was building in margin for conversation, to be able to have the most important conversations that I needed to have when I needed to have them. And then it was learning to set expectations. So you're going to hear from me anytime I coach or I teach something about setting expectations. The disappointment that people feel is the difference between what they expected and what the reality is. And I can't control their disappointment if I've not set the expectations. So when I talk about setting expectations, it is setting expectations with my clients. When am I going to call them back? When are we going to go over their home inspection report? When are we going to go look at homes, or how many are we going to look at a time? It's also setting expectations with those people that are most important to me, my team members, my family, my friends, right? If I am at home on a Saturday and I've got a day planned with my kids, and I'm negotiating a deal for a family, both of those things are important. I can't not negotiate something. That family is also important. I also can't let it take my whole day because my family is important. And so the setting expectations, when it became apparent that the disappointment was happening more at home than in my professional life, I had to take a look at, what do those expectations look like? And it is sitting down with my kids sometimes and saying, okay, guys, we've got this really awesome day planned, and the Smith family is in the midst of negotiating their perfect home. And so I am expecting to have an answer back from the listing agent around 11 o'clock today. When that call comes in, guys, I just want you to be prepped for, I'm going to need to work for about 30 minutes to make sure this family is taken care of. And then we're going to go grab some lunch. It's not formal. It is, though, setting the expectation. 2 things happen with that. Number one, my kids are prepped for, she's not working all day. She is going to help someone. The second piece of that, though, is accountability for me. That's the time that I've allotted for me to have those conversations. It helps me get to the meat of the conversation for business much faster. It eliminates some of the chit chat, and we are able to get into it so that I can do both things, spend time with my family, and yet at the same time have a successful career. So when we look at our different seasons of life, I want you all to understand that there are times that people will say to me, gosh, Jen, I want to have the buyer business that you had. And my question typically is, are you willing to do what I did? Right? Are you willing to lean in and do what I did, which is have the number of conversations that I had, right? Are you willing to do the lead generation? Are you willing to do the lead follow-up? Are you willing to do the showings? Are you willing to do all of these things? Sometimes people say, yes, that's exactly what I want to have happen. and I'll say, okay, great, you're headed into a growth phase, right? And the one thing they talk about, counterbalance. In a growth phase, the focus is on business, right? We're growing our business. And so sometimes that can take the majority of our time. That doesn't mean it takes all of our time. We just have to be very intentional with the time that we have at home and the time we have at work so that we can be in that growth phase. Other times people will say to me, you know what, Jen, I really don't want that, right? I've had people that have said, I wish that I could do that. And I have no real interest in helping 225 families in a single year buy a house. I get that. They may actually say, you know what, every year I'm really comfortable selling 36 homes per year. That's my jam. That's the money that I need to make. It's the time schedule that works for me. That's great. They're in a maintenance phase. And when we're in a maintaining phase, what we have to do is say, how do we allocate our time so that we're in balance, right? So that we're looking at this and saying, I'm going to be intentional with this time. Because even if you're in a maintenance phase, even if you're just if you're maintaining where you're at, your time can still get away from us, because guess what happens? The more times we do the same unit count, the closer we are to mastering that unit count. So what tends to happen is we actually get to that goal much faster, and yet we're spending the same amount of time working because we're allowing ourselves to. So what we have to understand is if we're maintaining, we still have to have those time blocks so that we're not wasting that time instead of reinvesting it in our family. And then we've got to create a plan for the unexpected. So what do I mean by that? How do you plan for something you don't know is going to happen? Here's my suggestion. I never knew when a bad home inspection report was going to come in. I never knew when a low appraisal was going to come in. What I did know, though, is I could control certain things. I could control that I don't want there to be a home inspection on a Friday. I don't want that report to hit me at 5 o'clock on Friday. I don't want to deal with negotiating repairs on a Saturday and Sunday, which should either be my prime showing time or my prime family time. And so what we did is we started saying, we're going to create a plan for this. We're going to reach out to our vendors, and we're only going to ask for home inspections Monday through Thursday. When we're looking at appraisals, we're saying to our appraisers, when are you going to be out there? When can I expect this to be back? We're also looking at the last slide where I said build in margin. I have time blocks for responding to emails. I have time blocks for responding to issues. When I have time blocks and I can build in margin, I have the space to handle things that pop up during the day. And what ends up happening is if I can handle them during the day, it doesn't creep into my night. There was, for those of you that were at Mega Camp, I was on a coaches panel and I was talking about win the morning, win the day. What I know about winning the morning and then winning the day is if I can get my most important things out of the way in the morning when everyone else is kind of still waking up and kind of getting into the groove of things, I've moved everything off of my plate that I possibly can, which lends itself to me having the opportunity to creating a plan for the unexpected. I have the ability, if a kid gets sick at school, to go pick them up, right? Either I have a team of people that can jump in and help me out, or I've got a team of people at home that can jump in and help me out. Either way, what I'm saying is I'm building out my team so that we're always prepared. It's interesting. I put on here, Jess and I, we created this content and we were looking at leaning into success. And it's funny because most people want success, clearly, right? If I said, do you want success or do you want failure? Is anyone choosing failure? No, I don't think so. However, success is hard, right? To be successful every day is a choice. It's a choice in how we show up. It's a choice in where we spend our time. It's our choice in what we eat, what we wear, what we drink. All of those things are a choice. And that's going to help us lean into success. The interesting piece of this, though, is the more successful we get, the more demands there are on our time. And the more demands that we have on our time, the more we have to narrow the focus on what we're actually doing. So when you get to a certain level of success, my suggestion to you is you're really not even living in your top 20%. If you want to be massively successful, you narrow that 20% to 15% to 10%. You get it as narrow as you possibly can, and that is where exponential growth happens. The other part of leaning into success is looking at what can we leverage? What is it that we're doing that maybe we're doing because it's easier than being successful? What are you doing that's easier to do that than to choose to be successful? So what I mean by that is, are we pulling data that somebody else could pull? Are we setting appointments that somebody else could set? Are we having conversations that potentially somebody else could have instead of lead generating? Instead of taking another class to improve our negotiation skills? Where are we not leveraging because we're actually afraid of the activity that we don't want to do, which will give us exponential growth? For me, my favorite thing to do is organize something, right? And Jess is looking at me like, really, I organize most of your stuff. Yes, she does. Because what I found is I can waste a lot of time organizing an inbox. I can waste a lot of time perfecting an email, right? Perfection can prevent us from our best success. And so what I had to learn is I'm better at certain things, and certain things still have to be done. So when I look at leverage, I look at it as our opportunity to build a great big world and then have massive success. The other thing about leaning into success is I've got the word hiccup on here, and some of you are like, gosh, where are we going to go with this, right? Hiccup for me is that first time that you bounce off of a ceiling. So we're successful, we're getting there, we're reaching our goals, and something happens and we kind of pop back down. And when I look at leaning into success, it is very much when I hit that ceiling and I'm like, gosh, I don't know what to do next. Most of the time, a lot of us will retreat. A lot of us will go back to what's comfortable. A lot of us will say, gosh, that was still great, right? And so what I've learned is I have to lean into that hiccup. When the bounce back happens, I am this close to having some other type of success. And so traditionally, I will tell you, it's either a system or a person. If I'm going to get through that hiccup, the faster I can get through it, the faster I'm going to get to a new success level. And so in that hiccup, I want to look at it and say, what do I need to do, or who do I need to have in my world that can get us through to the next level? And it's almost always, it is always a system or a person. I either need to improve a system, improve efficiencies, or I need to hire an additional piece of leverage. And then we've got the lessons from learnings. So when I look at this, one of my coaches one time said to me, there are no failures, right? There are just learnings. There are no losses. There are just learnings. And so at the end of every year, he has me list out all of the wins I've had in the year, and then all of the things that I've learned. And what I learned in doing that is every time I've had what I traditionally would have called a loss, something great has come from it when I've taken the time to learn something. So if you go back to those time blocks and go back to the thing I very first said, which was if our calendars could be 50% booked, what happens is then we've got time to think. I think the single biggest expense to a business is the inability to think through what's happened. Right? So when we look at a buyer agent and we say, okay, this buyer, gosh, we've shown them 15 houses. Buyers are liars, right? That old myth, which is so frustrating to me because I truly believe that that's an agent issue. If we look at it and we look up one day and we're saying, gosh, this buyer, I've had them for 6 months. I've had them for 9 months. I've had them for a year. I've shown them X number of houses. If we don't have space in our calendar to look at what's going on, what ends up happening is that we just keep showing those same people houses. instead of having the conversation that we need to have, which is regrouping with that buyer. We're not learning while we're going because there's no time to think. So when I look at learning something from the lessons in my life, I have to look at, how do I rebound when I have a failure? How long do I let myself sit in it? Who do I talk to when there's a lesson? And I talk about on our team, the MAPS team and our production team, often about being the thermostat. If I'm a leader in my organization as a buyer's agent, or I'm a leader in my organization as an operations person, or I'm a leader in my organization and I'm the team owner, what happens is that if I'm a leader, everyone around me adjusts to my temperature, right? That's the thermostat, right? I don't want to be the thermometer. I don't want to adjust to anybody else's temperature around me. I want them to adjust to mine. And so what I look at is, how do I rebound when I have a lesson and I learned something and it was a hard lesson? How do I show up at the office? Am I showing up where people want to be around me, or am I showing up and I'm ruining everyone else's day? So for me, I have to have a little bit of a time limit on what that looks like, right? I have to look at it and say, this is a big lesson. I'm going to give myself the day to feel bad about it. What I'm not going to do, though, is I'm not going to go talk to 12 people in my office about how bad this thing was, because every time that I bring it up, it changes somebody else's day. And then what happens is the next day when I've decided, okay, I'm better, then Jess comes in and says, gosh, are you still so frustrated about that deal that fell apart? Are you still so frustrated about the multiple offer that you lost? Are you still that listing agent? Gosh, they didn't tell you, you wished you would have known what they, all of these things. When she says that, I then rebound back to the frustration of the day before. So what happens is it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? It's this never-ending loop that we're in. When we give out negative feedback, then negative feedback comes back to us. And then I look at faith versus fear. It's been a challenging 2 years. Would everybody agree? If you agree that it's been a challenging 2 years, put it in the chat. Specifically for buyer's agents, right? It's hard. It has been hard with low inventory. It's been hard with high prices. It's going to be hard now with a shift in the market. Guess what? If that's what this class was, you would walk away and be like, gosh, the market is hard. Or we could say it's a skill set market. It's not a seller's market. It's not a buyer's market. It's a skill set market. And so what I'm looking at is I'm going to put certain things in so that when I get in tough situations, certain things come out. What do I mean by that? If I'm listening to great podcasts, if I'm reading great books, if I'm eating well, if I'm exercising, if I'm drinking more water than I'm drinking anything else, then if I have a bad day or one of my buyers has a bad day or something happens, my reaction tends to be better. It tends to be filled with faith, right? Faith in the market, faith in my abilities, faith in my work ethic. However, if I'm putting other stuff in, right? The market's hard. It's interest rates are going up, right? All of the things that everybody else is saying. If I'm only listening to those things, and then a buyer shows up in a certain way and says a certain thing, it reaffirms all of the fear that I put in my life. If I'm not sleeping, if I'm not exercising, if I'm eating junky foods, whatever that looks like, all of those things are a choice. And then what sets us up on how we're going to react with things. The other thing I know is that when production is high, anxiety is low. If I don't know what's coming in the market, here's what I do know. I know how to lead generate. I know how to connect with people. I know how to make a care call. What happens is when I get out of my own head in the worry or fear of what's coming, and I start doing dollar producing activities, making phone calls, going into showings, negotiating contracts, guess what I stop worrying about? The market. Because I'm present, I'm being where my feet are. I'm saying I'm going to show up and I'm going to do the work. And my intention is to get the results that I expect to get. So there's this book that I read a couple of years ago. My coach had sent to me, and it's called Chase the Lion by Mark Batterson. And this was potentially one of my favorite quotes. And it says, here's my personal definition of success. When those who know you best respect you most. Success starts with those who are closest to you. At the end of the day, I want to be famous in my own home. And by the way, it's hard to be famous in your home if you're never home. So when I got to this chapter, right, and I was reading this, it was the wake-up call. It was the same thing as the soccer game, right? I want my kids to be proud of me. They don't care how many homes I've sold. They just don't. They care about other people. When I say we've got a family that needs a home, they care about that. They can connect with that. They also, though, want me to be present. And so it's understanding what are the balances, what are the counterbalances, what are we leaning into, and what are we choosing? It's why I said at the top of the hour, whether you're a buyer agent or just somebody that's in real estate, it's understanding what our end goal is and then working towards it without giving up whatever our personal mission is or whatever our personal success is. And so today was one of the topics that we kind of wanted to go through, because it has been such a challenging market over the last few years that we want to look up and say, okay, we're ready for what comes next. We get to choose how we react to it. So we do, Jess and I, we've got a program coming up. So I am the coach for the Mega Buyer Agent, and it is a 6-week program. 6-week program is going to take you through what it looks like to be a mega buyer agent. So whether you are one or want to be one or want to hire one, the program goes through the whole funnel of becoming a great buyer's agent. It starts with lead generation, lead follow-up, building out a pipeline report, strategy sessions, which is what we use as terminology instead of a buyer consultation. We're going to go through negotiations, and we're going to set everyone up hopefully for success in 2023. So super excited. I don't see any questions in the chat. We've got 2 or 3 minutes left. Does anybody have any questions that they would like for me to answer, or any ahas that they want me to share? No questions? Jess, this is an easy group today. Awesome. Well, I'm going to drop my email in the chat. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. Also, just as a reminder, the recording will come out. So you should have that in the next 24 hours. And then Michael says, how to set expectations with buyers when you, I don't know when you what. So Joe, Mega Buyer Agent is not only for mastery clients. You do not have to have a coach to be part of the fast track program. So if a buyer doesn't want to offer above list price, that's the expectations for a buyer around negotiations start in the strategy session. So if I'm sitting down with Michael, if I'm sitting down with you at the strategy session, you and I would have a conversation around what's going on in the market. And I would ask you an open-ended question. Michael, what do you know about the market? And my job is to listen to your answer. And based on that answer, I'm going to do one of 2 things. I'm going to validate what you know, or I'm going to educate you to what's going on in the market. And I'm going to do that with stories of successes and learnings with clients. And I'm going to do that with market data. I'm going to make sure that I meet the personality style of the client that is with me. What I can tell you though, is if you wait until you're in showings to talk about negotiations, you're probably too late to be able to set the correct expectations. The perfect offer starts in the strategy session. So if you've already started showing properties and you've not yet had the negotiation conversation, it's as simple as a regroup script and just going through market data with them. Another question, is this a good class for rainmakers in our teams? It absolutely is. So we're going to go through really the hiring process. So it will be MREA based, and we'll go through what each member of the team would be responsible for. And then how do you handle extremely pushy and impatient clients? That's all in the expectations. So I'm going to set the expectations of how I communicate and what to expect and when I will get information to them. So typically, if I've got somebody that is very pushy, I will take a look at, did I set the expectations with them? Did I set boundaries with them? Am I holding those boundaries? Or am I answering outside of when I said that I would? And then I'll just reconnect with them and I'll just have a conversation around, hey, Jess, it seems like maybe you're a little bit frustrated with my response times. Can we go back through and talk about what's important to you? I want to make sure that you have a 5-star customer service experience. And I just need to make sure that our expectations are matching. I want my motivation to match your motivation. And so these are a lot of the conversations and dialogues that we provide in the Mega Buyer Agent. Hope to see you guys all there. If anyone needs to get a hold of me, you know my email. So love to see you then. Hope everybody has a great day.